My son's small hand pulled at my sleeve just as I reached for the front door. It was late. The hallway light was the only thing on, casting weak shadows on the walls. I could feel how tense the house was, like it was holding its breath. I thought he wanted a glass of water or to tell me about a nightmare. Instead, he pressed his lips close to my ear and whispered words that froze my heart. "Mom, Dad's lover is moving into our house tonight." For a second I honestly thought I heard him wrong. My mind rejected the sentence as if it was in another language. Lover. Moving in. Tonight. My world was built on 20 years of marriage, shared bills, school runs, and family dinners. Surely, this had to be a misunderstanding, a silly phrase he picked up from TV or a friend at school. My fingers tightened on the door handle as I turned to look at his face. His eyes weren't playful. They weren't confused. They were scared. My 8-year-old boy looked older in that moment, like he had been carrying this secret for too long. His lower lip trembled as he stared at me, waiting to see if I would believe him, or ignore him. I felt something inside me shift. Cold, sharp awareness. "What did you say?" I asked quietly, my voice barely more than a breath. He swallowed. "Dad said she's coming tonight. He told her on the phone." He said, "Don't worry, she doesn't know yet." The house suddenly felt like a stranger. The walls that once held our family photos seemed to lean in, listening. I could hear the faint sound of the TV downstairs where my husband was watching a game, like it was any normal evening. But nothing was normal anymore. My son's words were a crack of thunder in a clear sky. In that instant I had a choice. I could brush it off and let the lie grow deeper roots, or I could walk through this door and face the storm that had been brewing behind my back. I took a slow breath, touched my son's cheek, and said the only thing I could manage. "Stay in your room, baby. Whatever you hear tonight, just stay in your room." Then I turned the handle and walked into the living room, not knowing that everything I believed about my marriage, my home, and my future was about to be torn apart. If you had met us a year before that night, you would have said we were a picture-perfect family. We had a neat house in a quiet neighborhood. We had a small backyard with a swing set my husband and I built together one summer. We hosted barbecues, smiled at neighbors, and took photos at birthday parties with matching outfits. From the outside, nothing looked broken. My husband, Daniel, was the charming one. He made people laugh at dinner parties. He was the one who played soccer with the kids in the park while I packed snacks and kept the water bottles ready. He worked late, yes, but he always said it was for us. For the mortgage. For the private school we wanted for our son, Noah. For the vacations we kept promising we would finally take. I was the steady one. Planner. I knew when the bills were due, when Noah's school projects were assigned, when Daniel's mother had her doctor's appointments. I kept lists for everything. Groceries, doctor visits, family events. I thought if I just organized life well enough, nothing truly bad could happen. I believed order meant safety. But small signs had started to appear, like hairline fractures in a glass window. The late nights at work turned into weekend emergencies. The phone calls he took in another room became more frequent. He started sleeping with his phone under his pillow. When I walked into the room, the screen would go dark and he'd smile that tight, strained smile and say, "Just work stuff, babe. You don't want to hear about boring clients." There were new clothes too. Shirts I didn't recognize. Cologne I never picked out. And then there were the mood swings. Some nights he came home full of energy, overly kind, showering Noah with gifts he didn't need. Other nights he was distant, staring at his phone. His jaw tight, barely answering when I spoke. I told myself it was stress. I told myself marriages had seasons, ups and downs. We were just in a rough patch. We'd been together for almost 20 years. People change. Jobs are hard. Life is busy. I pushed away the nagging feeling in my chest because I didn't want to break the picture I had worked so hard to frame. The biggest sign, the one I ignored most, was his money talk. He started asking strange questions. "Hey, do you really need your name on all the accounts? It might be easier if everything is under one person," he'd say casually while scrolling through his phone. Or, You should sign this. It's just some paperwork for the bank. It's nothing serious. He would slide a document towards me without any explanation, his pen already uncapped. But I read everything. I always have. And I saw hints that made me uncomfortable. Changes in beneficiaries, temporary transfers, joint accounts suddenly becoming individual accounts under his name. When I questioned him, he laughed it off. You're overthinking. You always worry too much, he said, kissing my forehead and distracting me with affection. I wanted to believe him. I wanted our life to be what it looked like in photos. Happy family. A loving husband. Safe home. So I convinced myself that the unease in my stomach was just anxiety, not a warning. I had no idea that while I was carefully holding our family together, he was quietly getting ready to replace me, not only in his life, but in my own home. The first time I saw her, I thought she was just another one of his clients. Daniel worked in real estate and people came and went from his office all the time. But something about her stayed with me, even before I knew who she really was. Her name was Lydia. She came to one of our barbecues. That should have been my first red flag. Daniel said she was a big investor he wanted to impress. She was beautiful in a loud, obvious way. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect heels that sank slightly into our backyard grass as she laughed a little too loudly at Daniel's jokes. I remember watching them from the kitchen window while I washed dishes. My hands were in soapy water, but my heart felt tight. She touched his arm when she spoke. He leaned in a little too close when he answered. Their eyes met a little too long. I recognized that language, even if no words named it. It was the language of people who were already too comfortable with each other. When she stepped into the kitchen to help, I smelled her perfume before I even turned around. Sweet and heavy. She smiled at me in a way that felt like a test. You must be Emma, she said. I've heard so much about you. I forced a smile. All good things, I hope. She laughed. Well, Daniel says you keep this place running. I don't know how you do it all. I shrugged, wiping my hands on a towel. You just do what you have to do for your family. Her eyes flickered to the family photos on the fridge. I watched her stare at the one of Daniel, Noah, and me at the beach. There was something in her gaze that unsettled me, like she was measuring the life I had, the life I built, and wondering how it would look if she stepped into it. Over the next few months, her name kept coming up. Lydia called. I'm meeting Lydia at the office. Lydia is interested in another property. I asked if she was really that important to his work. He rolled his eyes. You know how clients are. She's demanding, but she pays well. Don't start. There were moments when I almost confronted him, really confronted him. Late at night when he came home smelling like her perfume. When he put his phone face down on the table, only to flip it back over when he thought I wasn't looking. When he suddenly became protective over his laptop, closing it the second I walked by. But every time I told myself, you're overreacting. Don't be that kind of wife. Trust him. I didn't realize that my trust was exactly what he was using against me. That while I was busy doubting myself, he was growing more confident in his secrets. The more I remained silent, the bolder he became. Then came the night my son overheard a phone call. The night he heard the words I had been too scared to imagine. The night everything suddenly made sense. Don't worry, my husband had told Lydia. His voice low and soft in the living room while he thought everyone was asleep. I'll handle everything. The house, the accounts. She still doesn't suspect anything. By the time you move in, it will all be in my name. My son, who had woken up to get a glass of water, stopped behind the wall and listened. Small, unnoticed, invisible. He heard Lydia laugh. He heard his father promise her my home, my savings, my life. And that's why, hours later, he stood at our bedroom door and whispered, Mom, Dad's lover is moving into our house tonight. When I walked into the living room after my son's warning, I saw my husband on the couch, relaxed, beer in hand, as if this was just another quiet evening. The game was playing on the TV, but his eyes weren't really on the screen. He looked satisfied. like a man who believed everything was under control. "Hey, you're still up?" he asked, glancing at the clock. "You should get some sleep. Long day tomorrow." I stood there, studying his face. Every line, every shadow. I thought about all the nights I stayed up waiting for him. All the dinners I kept warm. All the excuses I made to Noah about why Daddy wasn't home yet. My mouth felt dry. "When were you going to tell me?" I asked quietly. He frowned. "Tell you what? That your lover is moving into my house tonight." His eyes widened for a second. Just one small flash of panic before he covered it with a forced laugh. "What are you talking about? Have you been watching too many dramas?" "Daniel," I said, my voice shaking but firm, "do not insult me by pretending you don't know what I mean. I know about Lydia. I know about the calls. I know about the accounts you tried to move. And I know you told her I still don't suspect anything." He sat up slowly, placing the beer bottle on the table. The mask slipped a little. His jaw tightened. "You're being ridiculous," he said through his teeth. "You're overreacting like always." Just then, the sound of a car door closing echoed from outside. Headlights flashed through the curtains. We both turned our heads toward the window. My heart slammed against my ribs. He didn't move. He didn't look surprised. That was all the confirmation I needed. "Is that her?" I whispered. He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. Something inside me broke, but it didn't shatter into despair like I would have expected. It hardened. It sharpened into something new. I wasn't just a hurt wife in that moment. I was a mother. I was a woman who had worked for years to build a safe home, only to realize the man I trusted had been slowly trying to push me out of it. The doorbell rang. Once. "I'm going to open the door," he said finally. "I dare you to," I replied. He shot me a cold look, stood up, and walked to the hallway. I followed, staying a few steps behind. When he opened the door, Lydia stood there with a suitcase in her hand and a smile on her face that faded the instant she saw me behind him. "Oh," she said, eyes flicking between us. "I didn't realize." "Didn't realize what?" I asked, stepping forward. "That his wife would still be living in her own house?" She swallowed. "Daniel told me you two were figuring things out." "Is that what he said?" "Yes." "Is that what he said before or after he promised you my home, my money, and my son's future?" Daniel hissed under his breath. "Emma, don't do this right now. Lydia, come in, we'll talk." "No," I cut in. "She will not step into this house. Not tonight." For a few seconds no one moved. Then Daniel turned to Lydia. "Just go back to the car for now," he muttered. "I'll handle this." She hesitated, then pulled back, walking slowly down the steps, her heels clicking sharply in the quiet night. As soon as the door closed, he spun around to face me. The fake warmth was gone. His eyes were cold. "What do you think you're doing?" he snapped. "I could ask you the same thing," I answered. "You were going to bring your lover into our house while I was still living here, while our son was asleep upstairs." "It's my house too," he shot back. "And I'm done living a lie. You should have seen this coming. We haven't been happy for years." I stared at him. "Then why didn't you leave me like a man instead of planning to move her in and push me out quietly?" He looked away, jaw clenched. "You're dramatic." I was just trying to keep things simple. "You would have made it complicated. You always do." Simple. That word burned in my chest. Simple to him meant taking everything from me without giving me a chance to fight. Simple meant betraying me in silence, convincing himself he had the right to erase me from the life I built. That night, as we stood in the hallway facing each other like strangers, I realized something important. He was not going to feel guilty. He had already rewritten the story in his head. In his mind, he was the victim of a tired marriage, a nagging wife, a life he no longer wanted. If I didn't act carefully, he would not just break my heart, he would break my future. And that was the moment when my pain began to turn into a plan. Revenge for me did not look like shouting or throwing things or causing a scene. I wanted to Oh, I wanted to. There were moments when fury rose in my throat so strongly I could taste it. But then I thought about Noah, asleep upstairs. I thought about our savings, the house, the years of work. I thought about how easily Daniel had already tried to move things in secret. I realized something: if I lost control now, I might lose everything. So instead I went quiet. Not the silence of defeat. The silence of calculation. I want you out of my face, I told him finally, my voice calm. We will talk about divorce. But we will do it properly. With lawyers. With documents. With truth. He scoffed. You don't have the money for that. He had no idea how wrong he was. For years, he had assumed I was just the woman who paid bills and packed lunches. What he forgot was that I saw everything. I knew where the documents were kept. I knew which accounts were shared and which were hidden. I knew where the keys were, where the safe was, where the files were stored in his office. The next morning, while he left early to clear his head, I started my own war. Quiet kind. First I called a lawyer. A woman recommended by a friend I trusted. Someone who had gone through her own divorce and come out standing tall. I told her everything. Every late night. Every document he'd asked me to sign. Every time he mentioned changing account names. Every vague explanation about work clients, when I knew he meant Lydia. She listened in silence, then said, You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. And you are not powerless. Those words were like oxygen. She explained my rights. What I was entitled to after 20 years of marriage. What would happen if he tried to hide assets? What I could do to protect myself and my son. She told me to gather evidence. Bank statements, text messages, emails, photos, recordings of conversations if possible. Not to trap him, but to prove his pattern of deception if he tried to lie in court. Do not tell him what you're doing, she advised. Let him think you are still shocked, still frozen. Men like him are confident when they think you're confused. Use that. So I did. At home I played the role of the hurt, stunned wife. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I simply became distant. He assumed it was because I was broken. He didn't notice that I was also watching. While he showered, I checked the messages on his unlocked phone. Screenshots, forwarded to an email he didn't know I had. While he slept, I walked softly to the home office and opened the bottom drawer where he kept boring paperwork. I took photos of contracts, account numbers, property documents. I discovered that he had already tried to refinance the house behind my back. That he had opened a separate account months ago. That he had promised Lydia they would start fresh once he moved me out and settled things with the court. He underestimated how fast I could move when I finally stopped doubting myself. I also spoke to my parents and a trusted friend, laying out the truth. I made sure I had a place to go if things turned ugly. I quietly moved important personal items, documents, and some valuables into a secure location away from the house. Not stolen, just protected. My lawyer's words echoed in my mind. Protect yourself before you confront him with everything. Revenge in my case meant making sure he could not financially erase me. It meant refusing to let him rewrite the story and cast himself as the hero who rescued his life from a bad marriage. It meant showing him that the woman he thought was weak, passive, and easy to fool was actually steps ahead of him. I did not want to destroy him. I wanted justice. I wanted fairness. And I wanted him to feel, for once, what it was like to be caught off guard. To realize that his careless betrayal had consequences he never planned for. And so I waited. I waited for the right moment to pull the rug out from under him. Not with yelling, but with truth written in ink and stamped by the law. The day it all came to a head was quieter than I ever expected. No dramatic storm outside. No broken glass. Just a Wednesday morning with sunlight streaming through the windows and birds making soft noises in the yard. It was the kind of peaceful day that made the truth feel even sharper. Daniel came home from wherever he had been staying. My guess was Lydia's apartment, wearing a crisp shirt and that smug look I had learned to hate. He seemed confident, maybe even pleased with himself. He sat at the dining table and spread out some papers. "Emma," he said, calling my name like he was about to offer me a favor. "I think we should handle this like adults. I talked to a guy, and he said we can settle this without making it ugly." I sat across from him, my face calm, my hands steady. "A guy," I repeated. "A lawyer." "Not exactly," he said. "Just someone who knows how this stuff works. Listen, there's no reason to fight. I'll keep the house. You can take your personal things and I'll help you with rent for a few months until you get settled. We share custody of Noah. It'll be fine. Clean and simple." There was that word again. Simple. He slid a stack of documents toward me. "Just sign these and we can all move on. You don't want a long, messy court fight. It'll be hard on Noah. And on you." I looked down at the papers. My heart pounded, but not with fear. With focus. Because what he didn't know was that I had already been to my lawyer that morning. In my bag was another stack of documents that told a very different story. "Daniel," I said softly, "did your guy tell you what I'm entitled to by law?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" I met his eyes. "I mean, after 20 years of marriage, shared bills, shared income, shared property. Do you know what the law says I can claim? Or did your guy just tell you what you wanted to hear?" He shifted in his seat. "Emma, don't make this dramatic. I'm trying to help you." "You're trying to help yourself," I corrected. "You're trying to keep the house you promised to another woman. You're trying to push me out quietly. You're trying to pretend I was just a guest here." Before he could answer, I pulled out my own documents and laid them on the table. "These are from my lawyer," I said. "They show the accounts you tried to hide. The refinancing papers you filed without telling me. The transfers you made in your name only. And the legal rights I have as your wife." His face drained of color. You got a lawyer?" "Yes," I replied. "A real one." He grabbed the papers, flipping through them. I watched his eyes scan the evidence I had collected. Screenshots of messages with Lydia, financial records, copies of contracts. Every little thing he thought he could bury was now laid out in black and white. This is private," he stammered. "No," I said. "This is my life. Or life. And you tried to cut me out of it like I was nothing." He slammed his fist on the table, but even his anger felt weak now. "Why are you doing this? We could have done this the easy way." "The easy way for who?" I asked quietly. "For the man who cheated, lied, and tried to steal? Or for the woman who was supposed to accept being erased?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that looked almost like fear. Not of me but of consequences. Of losing things he thought he had already won. "You can show these to the court," I continued. "You can explain to the judge why your business client was planning to move into our house before we were even separated. You can explain why you tried to move everything into your name. Or," I let the word hang in the air, "you can accept a fair settlement. One that doesn't leave me and your son stranded while you start a new life with Lydia in the home I helped build." He swallowed hard. "What do you want?" "For now," said, "I want you to move out. Tonight. You can see Noah according to a schedule we agree on. I want my share of the house, my share of the savings, and stability for our son. I want respect in writing, since you clearly couldn't give it in your actions." The silence that followed was thick. He looked at the documents again, then at me. The confidence was gone. He suddenly looked smaller, like a man who had just realized the game was over and the audience had seen everything. "You set me up," he muttered finally. "No," I replied. "You set yourself up." I just stopped closing my eyes. That afternoon he packed a bag and left. There were no tears from him, no apology deep enough to matter. He walked out still thinking he was the one being wronged. But this time I didn't chase him. I didn't beg. I didn't ask what I could have done differently. The paper spoke for me. And for once he had to listen. The weeks that followed were not easy. Divorce never is. There were meetings with lawyers, court dates, uncomfortable conversations about money and custody. There were days when I cried in the shower so Noah wouldn't hear. Nights when the house felt too quiet, too empty, like it was missing a piece that used to be there even if it was broken. But there was also something else. A slow, growing sense of strength. Noah stayed with me most of the time. Daniel saw him on agreed days. And while I never spoke badly about his father in front of him, I also refused to lie. When Noah finally asked why Dad didn't live with us anymore, I took a deep breath and said, "Sometimes grown-ups break promises. When they do, they have to face the consequences. But none of this is your fault, and I will always fight for you." He nodded, his young eyes too wise. "I heard him, Mom," he whispered. "I heard what he said about the house. I was scared to tell you, but I'm glad I did." I hugged him tightly. "You did the right thing. You told me the truth. That's brave." We made new routines. Movie nights on Fridays. Simple dinners we cooked together. Little walks to the park after school. The house felt different without Daniel's presence, but slowly, it began to feel like ours again. Not as a broken family but as a new version built on honesty, even if it was painful. The legal process ended with a fair settlement. Kept the house. Not because I wanted to win a trophy but because it was stability for me and my son. We split the savings according to what the law said, not according to Daniel's simple plan. And most importantly, I had it all in writing, protected. I heard, through mutual acquaintances, that Lydia did eventually move in with Daniel, but into a rented apartment, not my home. Their perfect new life wasn't as glamorous as they had imagined. Money was tighter. Trust was fragile. They were built on secrecy and lies, and those foundations always shake. One day, months later, Daniel came by to pick up Noah. He stood at the doorway, looking around the house he had once tried to claim completely. It looked different now. Brighter, calmer. His eyes lingered on the photos on the wall. Just me and Noah, smiling in new pictures taken after everything fell apart. "You look different," he said. "I am different," I replied. "I finally remember who I am without you." He hesitated. "You know, it didn't have to be this way." I met his gaze. "Yes," I said. "You're right. Didn't. You chose for it to be." He looked like he wanted to say more, maybe to shift some blame back onto me, maybe to rewrite the story yet again. But he didn't. He just nodded, called out to Noah, and walked back to his car. As I watched them drive away, I felt something surprising. Not just sadness, not just anger, but peace. The kind of peace that comes after a long storm when you're finally sure the roof will hold. I went back inside, closed the door, and leaned my forehead against it for a moment. My son's whisper echoed in my mind. "Mom, Dad's lover is moving into our house tonight." And I realized something powerful. He didn't. She never did. Because I refused to step aside and let my life be rewritten without my consent. Because I stopped doubting myself. Because I chose to fight smart instead of fall apart. For the first time in a long time I smiled. Not because everything was perfect but because it was honest. Looking back, it's almost strange how normal everything once looked. Smiling photos, polite small talk with neighbors, carefully organized calendars. You can't see betrayal in a family picture. You can't hear lies in a birthday song. But they're there, sitting quietly in the spaces where truth should be. If there's one thing this story taught me, it's that your instincts are not your enemies. For years I felt something was wrong, but I silenced myself. I told myself I was dramatic, emotional, too sensitive. I believed his words over my own heart. I confused denial with peace. Betrayal hurts deeply, not just because someone lies to you, but because they make you doubt your ability to see clearly. They make you question your memory, your feelings, your worth. They turn their wrong into your overreaction. But here's the truth I had to learn the hard way. If something feels wrong for a long time, it usually is. I also learned that revenge doesn't have to be loud or cruel. True revenge, the kind that heals instead of destroys, is choosing yourself. It's protecting your future. It's saying, "I will not let your choices define my entire life." It's standing up quietly with documents, with facts, with boundaries, and refusing to accept less than respect. My son's courage gave me strength. That small whisper at my bedroom door changed everything. He trusted me with the truth. I owed it to him and to myself to act on it. To show him that when someone mistreats you, you don't have to stay. You don't have to close your eyes and smile. You can leave. You can fight. You can rebuild. Today, I am not the same woman who stood frozen in that hallway, hearing car doors and fearing the moment another woman would walk into my home. I am stronger. I am clearer. I no longer apologize for seeing what I see and knowing what I know. So if you're listening to this and something in your life feels off, if you're constantly convincing yourself that you're just imagining things, hear me. You are not crazy for wanting honesty. You are not demanding for wanting respect. You are not weak for feeling hurt. You are human. And you deserve a life where the person standing beside you is not planning to replace you in secret. Where the walls of your home hold truth, not hidden plans. Where the people you love fight for you, not against you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop doubting yourself and start acting. Quietly, smartly, firmly. Not to destroy someone else's life, but to protect your own. In the end, my husband lost more than a house. He lost the version of me who believed every word he said. He lost the comfort of my trust. He lost the chance to say, "She never saw it coming." 'Cause I did see it coming. And that made all the difference. You said,